as a new week begins. Is more good news coming for Indiana basketball?
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into this, the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. Appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day, your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. Happy Monday, start of a new week, and could more news be coming for Indiana basketball? We'll talk about that today. Plus, high school recruiting never sleeps. Big-time tournaments down south. We'll talk about that also. And then Indiana football picked up some big-time commitments from the portal where I think they got even better. All of that on the show today. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Look, we got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with your friends and for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Well, Indiana basketball continues to hit the portal. I've said that so many times because they've just stayed active in it. They have not settled for the ones that they've gotten, and they still have one of the best portal classes in this cycle, but they understand that they needed just a little bit more, and now they're starting to pick up some predictions, some crystal balls for a big-time transfer in Langdon Hatton. The center power forward can play both. We'll talk about that, but he's from Bellarmine, and he is an Indiana native. This guy grew up wanting to play at Indiana, wanted to be an Indiana Hoosier his entire life growing up here in the state, and didn't get the chance to do that, but now he does. And Indiana is one of the few schools that are interested in him, one of the few bigger name schools that are interested in him. And as I mentioned, he's starting to pick up some predictions to come to Indiana. Good things coming out of this kid. 6'10", 240 pounds. Again, center, power forward, can kind of play both with 1 year of eligibility remaining. He started all 31 games at Bellarmine, averaged 10.5 points, 7 rebounds with 24 blocked shots, and he shot 51% from two, 68% from the foul line, and 33% on minimal attempts from the three-point line. He started at William and Mary, went to Bellarmine, and now he's looking for a new home as well. He's 6'10", so he can be a really big 4 or he can play a 5. And the good news is Indiana's looking for that true backup at that spot, right? Because you've got Oumar Ballo that's going to play at your 5, and you've got Malik Reneau that's going to play at the 4, with McKenzie and Baco more than likely at the 3. So now you've got some depth questions that you're trying to answer. That's where this guy comes in. That's where Langdon Hatton comes in, a 6'10" guy who is able to block shots, is really good defensively, and apparently is a better shooter than what we think he is. And what we are able to see is what kind of folks are saying, that Bellarmine didn't really allow him to show his shooting skills. And so, look, when you bring in somebody that big, you're not looking for them to shoot the 3 ball, but in today's game of college basketball, you start to need it, and really in just basketball in general, and that's just a bonus. That's a plus, right? If he comes in and he can shoot the basketball. So excited to see if that's possible. Other schools that were interested in him, Ohio State, Minnesota, Clemson, Louisville, and of course us in Indiana. So big time programs that are really, a couple of those trying to turn it around and get things going, kind of as we are this season. And from what I hear and from what I know, here's the good news about Langdon Hatton. He understands what his role is going to be here. He understands that he is not going to walk through the door and be a starter. He's not going to start over Ballo, and he's not going to start over Malik Reneau. He understands that, and he still wants to be here. Man, you cannot deny that. You cannot let that get away. With a guy that has just the 1 year of eligibility, most of it players in his position who are coming from those smaller schools have gone through the grind down there and have just that 1 more year. They want to go play at Power 6 basketball level and start. They want to make the best and the most of their final year. From what I hear, this guy is totally okay with what his role would be. You have to go get that. If you are Mike Woodson in Indiana, that is so rare in today's world of college sports, not just basketball, but just the college athletic scene. He understands what he's going to be. He's going to be a role player. And I think he'd be a really good one at that. You bring in size, you bring in athleticism, you bring in defense, and apparently there's some secret shooting that he's got that we don't know about. So bring all that in, and you're going to be really good. You're going to be in a really, really good spot at either your backup 4 or your backup 5. And you could really play him at whatever spot you needed him. If one of the two guys gets in foul trouble, or God forbid they get hurt, or anything else happen, you can use this guy and plug and play. And I think that's what the Hoosiers are going to do. I think it's going to happen. I feel pretty good about it from what I'm hearing, from what I was told, and kind of what everybody else is saying too. I think it's going to happen. And it just makes sense, right? The Indiana kid wants to come play at the Hoosiers for his final year of basketball, can come in and help what is already a really good roster, what is already a really good transfer portal class, and can make it even better. And I think this guy can do that, man. I really do. And for Langdon Hatton, the Bellarmine transfer continues to receive predictions and crystal balls to come to Indiana. And imagine if you add that, man. Imagine if you can add that to this already stacked portal class. Now, there are some teams out there that are starting to kind of flirt with a top-ranked class in the portal, but it's not about being the top-ranked class, which it's nice if you have it, but it's about filling out your team, your roster, and making your program better. And I firmly believe that Langdon Hatton would make this current team better, this roster better, and this program better for the year that he's going to be here. And I cannot stress enough about how he understands what his role would be. And I think he would live up to it. And if you go get an Indiana guy who has dreamed about playing here his entire life, you hope that he's going to give you everything he's got, that he's going to give you his 100% effort and heart each and every day in practice, games, whatever. And I think we struggled with that a little bit last year, which is something I hope we pick up this year as well. Is got to pick up the energy, got to pick up the heart, got to pick up the effort a little bit on this current roster. I think we will. And I think this team's going to be much more engaged than what last year's team was. And I think a guy like Langdon Hatton on the bench, coming off the bench at 6'10", 240 pounds, could definitely help you do that. Well, coming up in Locked On Hoosiers, we will be looking at the high school recruiting because that is heated up as well. And down south, there are some big-time tournaments that were going on this weekend. You've got some for Adidas, some for Nike. They're all big-time recruits, some in 2025, some in 2026, and Indiana is scouting all of them. We'll talk about those coming up next on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. Look, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you cannot find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats. And look, you might not have the time or the resources to hire, but 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring, and you should too. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. If you're on the audio version, thank you for listening every single day. Be sure you follow us on whatever platform you're listening to, and be sure you turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode of Locked On Hoosiers. And for those of you that are watching on YouTube right now, like the video, send it out to your family and friends. If they're an Indiana Hoosiers fan, they need to be watching this podcast each and every day. Also, subscribe to the channel. Help us get there. We are well on our way to 2,500 subscribers. That is unbelievable. We are over 2,400, well on our way to 2,500, and I would love for you to be a part of that. So if you're one of my everydayers and you've been here every day for days and weeks and months now, just hit that subscribe button. That's all you got to do. Helps us out tremendously. Well, sidestepping from the transfer portal for Indiana basketball, in the high school world, this was a huge weekend in terms of tournaments and prospecting and recruiting, and just some of the biggest names in high school basketball were in a couple of central locations down in the South. You had the adidas 3SSB event where you had that, and then you also had the Nike EYBL event. So the adidas event was in Hoover, Birmingham, Alabama, and you also had the Nike EYBL event was in Atlanta, Georgia. So down south, but man, I mean, just two of the biggest basketball tournaments in really the year of the season for high school recruiting. And I want you to listen to all of these names that Indiana has prospected, I guess, before this, but guys that were in action, okay? Starting in 2025, you had Nate Ament, you had Malachi Marino, Michael Brown, Braylon Mullins, and Trent Sisley. Guys, we've talked a lot about in 2025, some that are scheduling for visits and interested in Indiana. So some big names, including Mullins and Sisley and Marino in there. And then in 2026, you have Taylon Kinney, you have Manny Green, Gabe Weiss, Jonathan Sanderson, Anthony Thompson. I mean, just some of the legit biggest names in high school basketball. 4 stars, 5 stars, super 5 stars. I mean, just guys that are going to be elite at the college basketball level. And if they're playing in these tournaments, you know they're elite anyway. And this is where the apparel thing comes back in just a little bit for Indiana. Remember how we talked about how Indiana's staying with adidas, right? Well, for another 10 years is what Scott Dolson, the athletic director, said. This is where that begins to come into play just a little bit, because Indiana, you're going to have prime picking at the adidas events like this. But that Nike EYBL tournament, the EYBL, is a little bit different. It's a little tougher because Indiana's not an adidas, or they're not a Nike school, whereas those big time Nike programs, yeah, they get a little bit more access. They get a little bit more, hey, come on over here. You know what I'm saying? They have a little bit more, I don't even know how to say it, attractiveness. I don't think that's the word I'm looking for, but you get what I'm saying. The Nike schools have more leniency and have a little bit more going for them at the Nike stuff, whereas Adidas schools have a little bit more pull, maybe is the way to say that, at the Adidas tournaments. At the end of the day, it doesn't have as much pull as it used to, but it still does play into it a little bit. But man, you talk about some of these guys, especially in 2025 with Mullins and Sisley and those guys, and even Brown, like the Hoosiers have been actively going after them. And something that everybody knows is the fact that high school recruiting, it has to be better here. You cannot survive on one recruit per cycle. Let's just be honest. You cannot do that. I know you've got the portal. I know you have people that can come in and you can restock your roster at any time. But I think Mike Woodson is a guy that still believes in high school recruiting. And I think it's still the way to be successful long term. I just don't believe, whether it be football, basketball, horse racing, like swim and dive, I just don't believe. I don't believe the transfer portal is your way to success long term for any big time college program, because you don't have the chemistry, you don't have the love for the program. You don't have the seniority in the program. You don't have any of that stuff. If you're just in the portal, you just got rotation and rotation and rotation, constantly flushing in and out new people. And it's really tough to build a narrative and really build a culture around whatever program it is. And talking specifically here about Indiana basketball, this is a tradition-rich place where it's really important to get guys that understand what it means to be an Indiana Hoosier and what it means to play inside of Assembly Hall for Indiana basketball. It's tough to get that with the transfer portal. And I know that may be a lost thought, a lost art in terms of what college coaches and college players want to be a part of now. But I think Mike Woodson still believes that too. And from an Indiana guy himself, he really understands what that means. And it's a lot easier, and I think it's more effective to do that through the high school ranks rather than just bringing all these guys in through the portal for 1 year and then watching them bounce. I mean, they're not really going to have any affiliation with the Hoosiers when they leave. They might have a little bit, but nothing like a guy like a Trey Galloway who would spend his entire career here. Like, those types of guys are the ones that build your program for the future. And look, you can't do that one guy at a time. And the Hoosiers are lucky to even have the one that they do in Bryson Tucker, because he was a last-minute addition when Liam McNeely said, yeah, see you later, I'm out of here. So you've got to find a way to get that improved. And that's exactly what Indiana's doing. That's why they're at these types of tournaments. That's why they're scouting all of these guys. And they've been in with many of these guys, right? And they've had scheduled visits. You've got them coming on the visits and coming to the campus. And even those 26 guys, you got to start right now. You should have already started, and they have. You have to be doing that because it's tougher than it's ever been. It's not just about the campus and the facilities anymore. It's about, hey, how much can you play me and how much can you pay me? That's what it's about now in college sports. High school recruiting and in the transfer portal. And no, you can't technically use money to recruit, but they're all doing it. Everybody does it. It's a bidding war now, and you've got to find a way to do it. I think Indiana's in a good spot with all of that in terms of NIL stuff. But it's good to see that the Hoosiers are still in on these guys. They were in Birmingham. They were also in Atlanta. And from the things I was not there, obviously, but the things that I saw and kind of things I was reading and everything, our guys did well. Our prospects, I should say, they did pretty well. And it's tough sometimes at these tournaments because you're playing so many games in so many days. I mean, it's typical AAU style, right, where you show up and you just play all day long. And it's tough to really gauge what they can do there. This is more of just seeing individual skill of ball handling and finishing and things like that. You're not going to overreact if somebody drops 30 or 40 points, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens with all of these, but it's exciting to see them all in one place. And hopefully Indiana is just continuing to hammer to them, hey, we've got playing time, we've got money, and we've got the pride of playing at Indiana. Final segment coming up on Locked On Hoosiers. We will discuss a little football as Curt, Cignetti, and the boys have added two major pieces through the transfer portal. One is a running back / punt returner. The other is an All-American defensive player. We'll talk about that in our final segment coming up on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. Look, you already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. We got to talk about it some more. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends or time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much more to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist all their stuff. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every single day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot Panchico machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. Go get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or App Store. Monopoly Go, game on. Final segment here on the show. Appreciate you being here on Locked On Hoosiers. Shout out to all of my everydayers. You are the reason we do this each and every single day. Flipping gears over to the football side, Curt, Cignetti, and the boys, they add a couple of nice pieces for the football team, and one's on the offensive side and one is on the defensive side. Let's talk about the offensive one very quickly. They add a running back to the room, which we know is just a completely new looking room and group for this Indiana team. Solomon Van Horst, I just like the name. I think it's sweet. Solomon Van Horst is coming to Indiana. He did not really play a whole lot in 22 or 23 due to some injuries, but he is transferring to Indiana. He is a former James Madison guy, so add that to the tally of the amount of James Madison players that are going to be on this roster, former players of Curt Cignetti. And he is a running back slash kick returner, which honestly, I'm cool with that because you got to have them. You got to have them, right? So I'm cool with that. And he seemed to be pretty good about it and pretty good at it, I think. And in 23, he was, again, dealt with injuries and didn't get to play a whole lot, which is unfortunate. He does have that 1 year of eligibility remaining, 5'8", 183 pounds. We'll see where he kind of fits in the rotation because you've got guys in there now, right? Because you look at it with Kalen Black and Tyson Lawton, and you also have, those are the other James Madison guys, plus Elijah Green and Justice Ellison, the two ACC transfer running backs. So it's stacked in there right now. Now, where does Van Horst fit? I don't really know. But if he's a kick returner, that's an easy, quick way to the field. And if you do that well, you'll get in some more playing time. So that was the first edition. I'm excited about him. But the one that really made a splash over the weekend was on the defensive side of the football, where the Hoosiers add an All-American corner to the roster, D'Angelo Pons, which that's a great name too. D'Angelo Pons. He was a freshman All-American a year ago at James Madison as a DB. So again, another tally on the James Madison to Indiana pipeline from Curt Cignetti from there to here, which is totally fine. I've had this conversation before, and I'll tell you again, I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. And you start talking about adding All-Americans, that's fine with me. I'm not going to turn that down. Absolutely not. That is a huge pickup for the Hoosiers. And I know there have been concerns. Well, James Madison's just going to, or Indiana's just going to turn into James Madison. Well, they were pretty successful last year. So you know what? I'm cool with that for a year until he gets his feet under him and starts getting some big recruits coming in to Bloomington. But to get back on D'Angelo Pons, a 2023 freshman All-American. He was also named the freshman corner of the year, according to the College Football Network. Just all sorts of awards for this guy. 5'9", 165 pounds, played 13 games and started in 10 of those for James Madison a year ago. Had 2 tackles for loss, 51 total, 15 pass breakups, 2 fumble recoveries, and 2 interceptions. Apparently, he jumped on a block punt in the end zone for a touchdown. How about that? So, overall, you're bringing in, again, a freshman All-American to play in the DB's room, in the cornerback room, where you are having to replace a guy that you thought was going to start. Remember, you lose Kobe Minor a few weeks ago, and now you have to replace him, and that's exactly what the Hoosiers have done. And if you don't think this is a huge pickup, let me tell you the list of schools that were interested in him as he entered the portal. Are you ready for this? Miami, Auburn, Illinois, Boston College, Houston, Memphis, Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech, Tennessee, Duke, USC, Arizona. Should I go on? How about Florida Atlantic, Virginia Tech, Cincinnati, Tulsa? Yeah, all sorts of big name schools. The biggest ones in there, Auburn, Miami, Tennessee. Yeah, those are huge schools that were interested in this guy and wanted him on their roster. And of course, Indiana having the tie to James Madison with the former head coach, you get that little edge and you eventually land him in the transfer portal. This guy's a day one starter if you do it correctly. If he comes in and works, he could be a day one starter right now, especially with Kobe Minor no longer here, who you expected to be a starter and no longer going to be. So I think you can slide this guy right in and pretty much make up for that with D'Angelo Pons. This is a huge get for Indiana and Curt Cignetti. And look, I don't know exactly what this defense is going to look like. We're still trying to figure that out as we get closer to the football season, but you got better this weekend. You got better with D'Angelo Pons. And you know what? I think the offense got better with the running back addition too, but this is a big one. I mean, this guy's getting national accolades. He was getting sought out by 30 Power 5 programs in college football. Yeah, you just made a splash in the portal if you're Curt Cignetti, and you know it, and you know that you just got better, which you cannot underestimate that. You cannot undervalue that on what he's going to bring. Some would say he's undersized, but look, 5'9", $140 or whatever. He was 5'9", $165. So sorry, I've got to give him 25 more pounds of credit. Look, he played with it, right? I think he's fine. I think he's really good. And his one-on-one defense is phenomenal. Go back and watch his film. I mean, he just covers his area so well. And you can put him on the number one guy when you're playing against these big-time teams in the Big Ten that are going to have some really good receivers. You can trust D'Angelo Ponds. You say, hey, that's your guy. Lock him down. And he's going to do it. So we'll see what happens here. But I'm telling you, the Hoosiers got better defensively with D'Angelo Ponds. And yeah, you got better offensively too with the addition of the running back for Indiana by the name of Solomon Van Horst. Awesome names. I mean, you won just in the names in general, but they're pretty good players too. So overall, I think Indiana football got better. 2 additions in the transfer portal this weekend, both from James Madison. Solomon Van Horst, the running back, and then you had D'Angelo Ponds, the cornerback. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. Those of you on the audio version, thank you so much for being there. Follow us there. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Also, to those of you on the video, be sure you like this video, comment on it, whatever you want to talk about. I'll respond to you down there. Also, subscribe to the channel if you have not done that. Helps us grow. We are doing that. We're almost to 2,500 subscribers. Yes, I know it's crazy the growth that we've had on the show in the last 6 months. So thank you so much for that. Also, I have an announcement. I thought it was going to become official today. I'm hoping it becomes official tomorrow. I'll tell you about it. It has something to do with you. Yes, the fan. We'll talk about that hopefully on tomorrow's show on Locked On Hoosiers. But until then, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.